Hey everybody, welcome back to Icewind Dale. We're ready to start prepping for Chapter 3, so let's dig in. It's been a little while since we've done any chapter prep, so what we're doing here, this is on my Notion page, and I'll have a link for this in the description below, but before I actually dive into the session prep, when I'm starting a new chapter, I like to do a little prep. I reread the chapter and make note of some important things. So where you can find that here in my Notion notebook is under Resources. I've got a campaign outline. And then I have up at the top here quick glances for each of the chapters. So Chapter 3. So diving into Chapter 3, we've first got a couple of changes that I'm making from the book. The first is that Xardarok is actually being influenced by Deep Dwera. I believe it's Asmodeus, or one of the devils, that is trying to trick Xardarok into taking over 10 towns. But one of my players, Quark, his deity is Abathor, who is rivals with Deep Dwera. So I'm just keeping it as actually Deep Dwera so that there's some motivation for my party. And trust me, there definitely is. Quark's very excited to go help his god out. The another change that I'm going to be making is the way the Chardalyn Dragon is handled. So in the book, when you're approaching Sunblight, the dragon is supposed to take off and fly over your characters, and they have to make a choice. Do we continue on to Sunblight and try and get Xardarok, or do we head back to 10 towns and save 10 towns? I want my party to have more information before they make the choice. So in Sunblight, you can discover the path of the dragon, and maybe my party won't, but I want to give them that opportunity at the very least. So during the big battle with Xardarok, I'm planning on that taking place in the forge in the basement level of Sunblight. During that battle, Xardarok is going to be motivated to release the dragon. So then my party can decide, do we continue to battle or do we head back now with more information? That's the plan so far. We'll see how that goes. Another couple of changes I'm making is I'm adding Valin Harple and Rory's dad as prisoners in Sunblight. So at the basement level, there is a little prison cell area. We're going to add those two and remove the NPCs or whatever that are in there. The reason for this is I want them to meet Valin, and I want her to get to know the party a little bit so that in future chapters they are familiar with who she is. Rory's dad we've kind of been setting this up for a while. Rory was raised by Yetis, so her Yeti father, I think his name is Harold, is held in prison here, and the reason for that is Xardarok is looking for this mystical weapon that the Yetis had. So it'll be a quest line for Rory going forward once they save her dad, or if they save her dad. Goals for my party. The biggest thing right now is for them to stop Xardarok. They kind of know what's going on. They know he's building something to come destroy 10 towns, and they also know that he's working for Deep Dwera in their interrogations of some of the Duergar that they've run into in 10 towns. Quests. No real quests from the book. However, there is one we're going to add from Rory's dad, where she's going to head to Jarlmut to be tested in order to gain this weapon. NPCs in Sunblight, really just Grandolpha, who's sort of staging a coup, sort of. And then we've got Xardarok, and I've got links to their little pages here in Notion, and you can see I've got character cards. You can go print those as well. I'll have links for the character cards and the magic items in the description below. And then if you want an organized place to get those with all of them in one spot, I have a Google Drive for my patrons. You can have access to that if you'd like as well. Magic items, we've got the Hat of Disguise, a Pawafwi, and Wand of Web. There are some other treasure items that are in Sunblight, but these are the magic items. And then figuring out a transition to Chapter 4. This is pretty simple. Once the dragon takes off, now we're ready to go into Chapter 4. So that is my prep for Chapter 3. So let's jump into our session prep. Our first step of session prep is to make sure that the characters are always first. So we have Jack, who is our Harengon bard, and he is focusing on learning more about the Netherese and trying to stop corruption. Next is Kaima, who is our human sorcerer, who was raised by reindeer herders, and her parents made a deal with some hags, and we're going to get into that a little bit later in our campaign. We have Quark, who we've talked about already, our dwarf cleric, who is doing everything he can basically to set up business to help his god Abathor make money. Next we have Rory, who is our Leonin barbarian, and she is looking for her family, which we're about to run into, and then we'll have some quests for her as far as finding magic item. Then we have Tavar, who is our elf ranger, and he was trained by the Arctic Blades, and right now kind of on a back burner, but Hlyn Trollbane has kind of been Tavar's contact, and Hlyn will have more quests or more objectives for Tavar to complete later. Our strong start, our party had just finished up at Necros's cave. I think I talked about that in our catching up video. So they're just starting up there, and then they're going to head to Sunblight. That leads us into our scenes. They're going to travel to Sunblight, so we're going to get a marching order. I'm going to have them roll some checks, rival and whatnot, and we'll see if weather effect impacts their travel. I also plan on having his Chardalyn Berserkers come from Sunblight. They have been infected by the accumulation of Chardalyn in Sunblight. This is one of the wilderness encounters you can roll in Chapter 2. However, these ones do not have the Snowflake Ice Ring, which when you touch it, I think it transports you to another location. We're not going to add that in. We also have the potential for Crag Cats to attack at night. We're going to have them start attack the weakest looking member. I think they might have run into Crag Cats once, but we're going to add more and make them a little bit more powerful, because my party's beefier than the last time they ran into them. Secrets and clues. So these are just things that help lead the story forward. I'm not going to go over these because these are kind of rolling forward from some of my prior sessions, but just things for me to keep in mind or to plant for my characters, and this can come in any way, shape, or form. If you're interested in learning more about secrets and clues, I'll point you in the direction of The Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, which is a fantastic book, or to Sly Flourish's YouTube page, where he talks about these in great depth. NPCs that'll come into play during the session, or at least the ones that I expect to, that I have reviewed. I've got Rory's family, so his dad Harold, his aunt Meg and Greg. So they met Meg and Greg at the top of Kelvin's Cairn, who pointed them in the direction of Sunblight and Rory's father, Harold. Locations, Sunblight. So I have a little card here that brings us to Sunblight, and you can see I've got the map itself from the book with the locations and then the player version, and I've gone through each area and put in anything that is important, any enemies, treasure, checks that might be in there. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just anything of importance I have put in here. And this is just so that I can have a quick reference as we're going through, so I don't have to read the giant block of text that's in the book. When I'm going through my sessions, I'll usually have the book on one hand, and then I'll have this on the other so that I can reference back and forth and just have a quick, easy way so that we're not spending tons of time looking up information in the rooms. So if you're interested in this, again, link in the description below for my Notion page. Monsters and stat blocks. I have added these little collapsible headers for Sunblight. You can see that I've got the Duergar here because they show up everywhere in Sunblight, but then I've also got it broken out by each level of the fortress. And I have included snips of each of the monsters or enemies that you can run into, as well as some notes for some of the more important NPCs, so that I know how to run things and it's a quick, easy reference for me. This has been a game changer for me. I've been doing it for, the last campaign and a half about, and I really like having these here rather than having to flip back and forth in the books. And then the last piece is treasure, which is in the book. I don't have to worry about that. And we've got all of that noted in our Sunblight location. So that is pretty much it. Short, sweet, and to the point. I'm very excited to get into Sunblight and for my party to be tested quite a bit, especially in resource management as they run through this. We'll let you know how it goes in the next one. Thanks a ton for watching. I do appreciate it. And special thanks goes out to my patrons. We'll catch you all in the next one.